What's up, y'all? Happy Friday. Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. The snow is falling in the Mile High City. I know we need it, but spring snow is always such a hassle. Hope you're warm out there, nice and cozy. Thank you for tuning in live on a Friday morning with us. As Sky says in the Toyota chat, smash that like, dorks. I appreciate you guys. We've got a lot to get into. Huge win for CSU men's basketball the other night over New Mexico in the pit. The Rams went in as 8.5-point dogs. Snapped a 5-game losing streak to the Lobos with a really impressive wire-to-wire victory. We'll spend a lot of today's show kind of talking about what stood out from that win, why this team is dangerous going into the Mountain West tournament. We'll give an updated power ranking. CSU a top 3 team right now. I think they have a strong argument. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to set the scene for spring ball. I thought the initial plan for CSU football, and I may be incorrect on this, was to start later in the month. But we got an email this week and found out practice is in fact going to begin on Sunday. I'll be there. A little bit of a scheduling headache for me. I was supposed to be on Avs duty that day, but obviously got to be there day one. New era. We'll see what the vibes are like under Jim Mora. We'll see how a lot of these new players look. It's so early in the process. We're not going to get carried away. You can only take away so much when they're in shorts and t-shirts. But I'll just kind of get into some of the stuff that I will keep my eye on in the early stages of the new iteration of CSU football under Jim Mora. I'm looking forward to it. Weather should be nice, knock on wood. And then obviously I'll be in Vegas next week for the Mountain West tournament, which should be a blast. This will be my 10th time making it out to Vegas for the event. A little bit bittersweet, given that it's the last in the Mountain West as we know it. Still think that'll be a fairly fun hoops league moving forward. It won't be the same, right? For years and years now, we've seen San Diego State, New Mexico, CSU, Utah State, Boise over the last decade. It's just been so fun year after year seeing these teams go blow for blow. The competition is usually tremendous. It's something I look forward to every year, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'll have a ton of written content. If you're not a diehard, again, that's the incentive, right? Get access to all of our written coverage. I'll have features. I'll have takeaways. We'll see what happens. I think there'll be some Pac-12 Mountain West storylines that come out of it. Really should be a fun time. If you missed it, our guy David Roddy, he's home. He is a Denver Nugget after signing a 2-way deal, was playing for the G League team for Toronto, has really looked good in the G League in the time that he spent there, but has obviously bounced around a little bit in his NBA career. Landed in a bad spot in the draft, which is something you're always worrisome over as a fan. It's one of the things that had me on alert with Nick Clifford going to Sacramento. There are certain organizations that have a knack for putting young players in a position to succeed. They are known for development. They are known for having stability within the locker room. And then there's the Memphis Grizzlies with John Morant and whatever the Kings are right now with Russell Westbrook. I don't know if you saw it, but he went on another classic Russ rant against the media. Seems like rinse, wash, repeat with him. He comes in. He's a high energy player. He was a tremendous player at one point in his career, so I want to be fair to him. But he comes in, he'll have that one big splash performance that kind of gives shades of vintage Russ, and you talk yourself into it, but nobody snatches a loss away from the hands of victory quite like Russ. I just hate that he's in that organization while we have Neek and Isaiah out there. Little aside for you, my apologies. I can rant with the best of them when it comes to Russell Westbrook, John Morant too. I mean, if we're talking about a fun player who has just completely failed to live up to his athletic potential because he can't seem to lock in. It's a shame, but it's also a shame that Ja's immaturity has resulted in what could have been a fun window for that franchise, basically being a what if, right? They had their little run where they finished second in the West. Yeah, Ja, you had Jaren Jackson. They draft Roddy. It feels like it's not a horrible fit for him when he goes in there initially, and it just didn't work out. And since we've seen him play for a couple of different teams, Houston, Atlanta, Phoenix, he's bounced around a little bit. So I'm still holding on to hope that he can establish himself as an NBA rotational guy. I think he's skilled enough. I certainly think he's intelligent enough. That's one of the things that was so fun about watching him and Zay play together, was you just got to see two really high IQ players manipulate the floor and think 3 steps ahead of the defense the entire time that they were here. The tough part is he could be a little bit more of a physical mismatch, especially in the Mountain West and even against most college basketball teams. Like Roddy's a guy who could have gotten a bag playing in the Big 12 or the Big 10 or wherever he wanted to go had he chosen to go that route. I think he landed in the NBA because he chose to stick around, and there's a lesson to be learned in that. Look at guys like Neat Clifford, Isaiah Stevens, how well it worked out for them. Tanjay, I suppose, is a bit of a different conversation, but his whole career arc is just really unique, given that he was a 4-year guy, used the COVID year, then he got hurt. And I actually think getting hurt at Missouri was the best thing that ever happened to him, because he landed in a better fit in Wisconsin. He got to spend a year behind the scenes refining his game, working with a trainer. And he's since signed a 2-way deal with the Celtics as well. Roddy, in the clip we're going to play here in just a couple of minutes, he actually gives some thoughts on just how neat it's been to see his old teammates, Zay and Tanjay, make the NBA, as well as Neat Clifford. But, kind of what I was saying there, just with the physical mismatch element with Roddy's game. He's a big, strong kid, but he's got NFL quarterback size. I think he was listed at 6'5" at CSU. He's more like 6'4", I believe, which is, that's point guard height in the NBA, right? And you're in a position where you're really more of a wing, I guess, in the role that he's played at this point. I think skills set, he's probably best suited to be like a stretch 4, an undersized 4 that plays bigger than his size, would have to be solid on the glass, that type of stuff. But he might just be too small for that type of role against, some of these guys. NBA players are just so big. It's insane. It's funny how in the lens of NBA bodies, if you're 6'4", like 230, you're not that big of a guy. It's hilarious. I always think about that when I'm on the basketball court, around these 7-footers and stuff. It's just absurd. Like, there aren't a lot of guys on the football field that make me feel like I'm looking up, talking to my dad or something as a little kid. Talking to basketball players, they're not human. But it's just kind of been a situation where he's been a bit of a tweener. I feel like he's not quite fast enough to be like a 2 guard or a point guard or something like that. That's not his skill set. He's a good passer, but he's not really big enough to be a wing, or tall enough, I should say, strong enough. He's athletic enough, and he's made an impact. It's not like he's been a no-show in the time that he's gotten some run in the NBA. I think he averages about 6 points a game. He's been serviceable, but defensively, it's just tough because you're going up against such bigger guys at this level. So we'll see. I don't feel like this is going to be a situation where Denver proves to be the long-term home for Roddy. Who knows? We shall see. But I just like that he gets an opportunity here to potentially show what he can do. And so long as you hang around the league, like, you never know what opportunity might come your way, and you've got to stay ready for that. So it'll be fun. He didn't see the floor last night against the Lakers. It does sound like, we'll play a clip from Adelman too, that they're comfortable with Roddy getting some run. It's not just we're going to stash him on the end of the bench in case of emergency type scenario. I do think it's more like you'll get on the floor and blowouts either way, or if somebody gets into foul trouble. But if he can do some stuff here, you never know. And certainly playing around guys like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, you're going to look a little bit better. So I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful for what this little stint in Denver can be. It'd be sweet if he stuck around through the playoffs. We'll kind of have to see how all of that plays out. But he's one of my favorite guys that's ever come through the program. I mean, just a really articulate and intelligent young man. He was always so gracious and genuine with the media. We obviously had the NIL deal with him, so he came on the show quite a bit. He's always happy to see us when we get an opportunity to interact with him, like RG did in the locker room last night. He's just a guy that you can't help but root for, and I really would love to see him find a home, find his footing here in the NBA, because I think he could dominate overseas. Really, that's the case with all these guys, right? Isaiah, Tanjay, Roddy. I mean, they'd be studs overseas and make really nice livings. But the dream is to play in the NBA. And when you think about him dropping 36 against Creighton, which is up there with Neek going for 36 against Boise, Clavel going for 37 at Viejas is still one of the more impressive performances I've seen. But I mean, he is someone who has flashed significant potential a lot of different times in his career, both at the collegiate level and the NBA level. Just has to find the right fit. And hopefully this can be, a key step in his evolution as a professional basketball player. Here is that clip. It's about 2 minutes of David Roddy speaking with our guy, Ryan Greene, in the locker room after the Nuggets win over the Lakers. Always great to catch up with him. Always appreciate him being willing to give our guy RG a few minutes of his time.
What was that journey like? Did you even think? I know you worked out for him.
Yeah.
But did you think that, hey man, maybe this is a team to keep an eye on? In the
Yeah,
future?
for sure. Each year, every time I come here, it's always a warm welcome. So, and again, like I said when I was in pre-draft, it's a very nice fit for me. So, again, it was a complete shock. We just lost a game in the 905, and I got a call right after the game just saying, hey, Denver wants you on a two-way, and we need you here tonight. So packed up my entire apartment and then had a 6-hour travel day to here. So I got here late at night, and early this morning I'm barely keeping my eyes open, but I'm getting through workouts. So man, it's just been such a great journey, and again, super honored and blessed to be here.
Yeah. Obviously, you've played against him before joining the team. What's it like being in the locker room with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon?
Dude, it's insane. These dudes are awesome. The chemistry is crazy. The synergy and the connection are, second to none. So just the way that they handle adversity and the way that they communicate to each other is awesome. And they share the ball. I mean, it's unlike any other team that I've been on. So it's really fun to watch and fun to experience. And again, got the best player in the world. So.
You got also, there's a lot of CSU Rams in the NBA now. Isaiah Stevens is in there, Nick Cleveland's in there. Like, what's it like seeing them just in the league with you, man?
It's crazy. It's a goal of ours that we had, coming in as freshmen at CSU. Nick came in, a little later, but, John, Isaiah, myself, like we've been working towards it. So just super happy for those guys, always connected, always trying to watch their games, always trying to give them advice as much as I can just through my experience. And again, they're killing it as well. So super happy for them.
I know the Nuggets obviously had a plan for you, but what's kind of your plan during your time here?
I used to have plans. Now I'm just really just enjoying the moment. Just enjoying the moment. Be professional. Show up every day, work hard, just be consistent, and when my number's called, just be ready to play, be ready to compete, and just be myself.
Awesome, man.
I love that answer from Roddy. That's probably very true. You come into the league having an idea of how this is all going to go. Most certainly has not been the path he would have hoped for or expected after being a first-round pick. But you never know when things might click for you, and I'm really rooting for him, because you can tell with the way he talks about his time at CSU, his teammates. Like, he's just such a good guy, and I'd love to see him find some success here. Here is a clip of David Adelman. This was from pregame. He was asked if there's a possibility we see Roddy in the rotation or on the floor at some point. So this is the Nuggets head coach talking a little bit about that.
Everybody that's here has a chance to play, and we've done that throughout the season. If I think David can help us, whether that's for 2 minutes, just to spell someone if we have foul trouble. We know what he is. We've competed against him. And that's why we brought him in. You don't bring people in for show. We know he can play, and if he can help us win the game tonight, I'll play him.
You love to hear it. Love the Maxie the Miner logo that Adelman's got on as well. I'm a fellow Maxie stan. You know, the last thing I want to say on this is just that CSU hasn't produced NBA stars to this point. I understand that. These aren't the faces of franchises or anything like that. But I go back to when I was a kid and we had Jason Smith, and that was it for about 20 years as far as CSU representation in the NBA goes. And there's just not a better selling point. We can talk about NIL and just getting straight up cash, but in terms of when you're talking to these players about fit and maximizing their potential, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to be able to say, look at the last 5 years and what we've done. We've gone to 3 NCAA tournaments. We've sent 4 players to the NBA. Why wouldn't you come here, grow as an individual, and then go on to the NBA where the real money is? It's one thing to get, $300,000-$400,000. It's a lot of money. I'm not scoffing or trying to be dismissive of the opportunity to make 6 or even 7 figures in the case of guys like Kyan Evans. But I mean, look at what you get when you're a first round pick in the NBA. It's life changing. Even with Roddy not having worked out in Memphis, just being a first round pick and getting that guaranteed money. And same thing with a guy like Nate Clifford in Sacramento. It's life changing. And it's just pretty cool to see. So I wanted to give a couple thoughts on that. Love to see Rams representing in the NBA. The more that you can continue to compete for conference championships, the more that you can make NCAA tournaments, the more that you can send guys to the league, the more it's going to elevate the caliber of player that you're able to recruit and bring into this program. And I think we've seen that even just with the ascension from the beginning of the Medved era to where we're at right now. The success that Roddy and Stevens and then Nate Clifford and even Jalen Lake and some of these other guys had at CSU, I think that makes it more realistic to land a Kerry Booth, to land a Jace Butler. These guys would have had high major options, but you have that track record of success and that proof of concept, which is just so massive when it comes to the recruiting pitch. And obviously Ali and these guys are really genuine individuals. They're going to come off as likable anyways. But not only when you get to come play for a good guy, a fun coach who's going to have your best interest, who's going to be fun to play for, but you can also clearly get to where you want to go in terms of your individual goals, which is, again, just such a strong selling point for CSU as a program. We're going to take a quick breather. We're going to talk CSU football, kind of set the scene for spring football. It's so early in the process. I don't want to get too carried away or act like we're going to know everything about this team by the end of April, but it's our first glance. And obviously there's a lot of excitement given that it's a new era, got a new quarterback, a lot of new players at the skill positions, all kinds of stuff to keep our eyes on. And I will talk about some of the things that I will have my eyes on in the early stages of spring football here. But yeah, let's take that break real quick and shout out our partners. Shout out Benihana. They've got an awesome happy hour featuring items ranging from $3 to $6 to $9. Includes specialty rolls, cocktails, premium bites. It's available Monday through Friday at both the Denver and Broomfield locations from 3 to 6 p.m. Benihana, it's more than just a meal, right? It's dinner and a show, really. It's an experience. The hibachi grill, it's the field. It's a lot like going to a sporting event, and you're here to see the masters of their craft, the athletes, if you will, cook. The show happens right in front of you. It's more than just a meal. It's really neat. They've got the onion volcano and the beating heart fried rice and all the classics, the shrimp toss, all of the hits. They're going to play them. And that's what you love about it. This isn't some indie band, we're going to go too deep into our bag here. We're not going to play the classics. They're always going to play the classics, and we love them for it. Right now, they've got the Wagyu of the world going on, which is an opportunity to try premium steaks from all over the world, seared right in front of you, from Japan, Australia, the U.S., and more. Top it off with some hot honey, some Wagyu umami or truffle butter. You really can't go wrong. Make your reservation. Find out more information at benihana.com. Are you looking to get some swag for your brand? Are you looking for headwear that you can dress up and dress down, that you can wear not only in the office with like a polo shirt, but also on a hike or on the links or something like that, look no further than Branded Bills. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. If you're looking for gear to make your brand stand apart, Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear around. All you have to do, start your order. Their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel that you need. They've got a partnership with CSU as part of their on-campus collection. You can find Branded Bills hats in the bookstore. You see them around campus more and more. The football coaches wore a ton of Branded Bills last year. It was pretty cool to see. If you head to brandedbills.com, you can use the code BBDNVR, get 15% off of your order. Again, that's brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. All right, y'all, let's set the scene for spring football. Highly anticipated new generation under Jim Mora. Feel like the portal on paper was a win for the Rams. You lost some key players that you would have loved to have held on to. You guys know how high I was on guys like Jalen Dupree, on Owen Long defensively. But Haas Haney is as excited of a quarterback addition as I can remember for the Rams, or as I'm as excited about him as a quarterback addition as anyone I can remember. I think we got there. Some of the defensive guys, Omar Diamande at linebacker. I'm really intrigued to see what he looks like in person. The O-line, how are they able to hold up? All kinds of different stuff. But I think the first thing that I'm definitely going to gravitate towards is the quarterback position, right? It's a quarterback game. Feels like it's a position that has not been maximized at CSU in quite some time. There were moments where the talent popped under Braden Fowler-Nicolosi. There were moments, especially as his career progressed, and you didn't seem to see the development or see him kind of take that next step forward, where it was very frustrating. And in his defense, I think the entire state of the offense was just a mess last year. Having 3 OCs and a 12-game season, that's less than ideal. The offensive line struggled. The skill positions did not live up to expectations. And we probably were a little too high on a couple of those guys. I'm still surprised that Armani Winfield didn't make an impact or a bigger impact at CSU than he did. I think Tommy Maher is capable of showing a lot more than what he showed this past season. But you went out and you got a lot of guys at running back, receiver, tight end. I'm excited for all of them. But if you don't have the quarterback, man, you're not going to have an opportunity to compete at a high level. And although it's somewhat of a sell job and just trying to get the fans excited, generate a little bit of traction, Jim Mora has gone on record and said that the expectation in year one is not just to compete or is not to lay a foundation. It's to compete for a Pac-12 championship. And in this portal era, you don't get 3 years to hit the ground running like you did 10, 15 years ago. The game has changed so significantly since Mora even took over UCLA, but he knows that. He knows what the deal is. And he went to a school like CSU, as did Jay Norvell, to be fair, because in theory, you have everything that you should to be able to compete at a high level. The resources are there. The facilities are there. You're in a conference that should have access to the playoff. Now it's just a matter of hiring the right guys, and I know that's been a bit of a process as well. There's not as much continuity on the offensive side of the ball as you would have hoped for. Those explosive offenses at UConn were a big part of what made this hire so exciting and what was a big part of what gave people hope for his ability to come in here and turn it around. Now you're going to have to do that, without Gordon Samus, the play caller who's at TCU. You're going to have to do it without your running backs coach, who's developed a couple of really big-time producers in recent years. You're going to have to do it without Kashif Moore, who was able to develop Skylar Bell and have him be a Bolitnikoff finalist at wide receiver. That one always gets me. Bolitnikoff. It's tough to spell. It's tough to say. But I do think that there's some reason for optimism in that as well. We've talked about that, so I don't want to get too repetitive. But you don't want it to be a revolving door. You also don't want it to be a situation where nobody on your talent is deemed worthy of being hired by a bigger school. Like you don't even have guys that are on the radar. That's not a position you want to be in either. And I do think there was kind of some of that on the Norvell staff outside of Savage. You know, I do think Bill Best will get a new gig next year. I think he had a 2-year contract, so he's probably just kind of chilling for the time being. But I am very interested to see kind of what that looks like. And in that vein, I'm curious to see just how this staff operates as a whole. That's one of the things I'll have my eye on here. You know, how do you operate? Is everybody segregated in individual drills through the entire practice? Or is it more collaborative? You know, is how much true 11 on 11 do you do? All of that type of stuff. Is there music playing? What's the intensity level of the practice? Are your coaches the type of guys that kind of build players up, which is what I would say was more the Norvell line of coaching, was to be, I guess, just a little bit more positively reinforcing rather than cussing the guys down and really going with like the old school football type approach. Mora is somebody who's been around this game for a long time, but also the thing is, I think guys that spend time in the NFL, they're less likely than the college lifers to be people who hoot and holler and are in your face and more of that bully type coach, because you can't talk to grown men that way in the NFL. It's not going to work. And I think you kind of learn better how to communicate. And I think that was one of Norvell's strengths, to be honest. But it just didn't come together for whatever reason. And then one of the biggest factors in that is the inability to maximize the quarterback position, kind of coming full circle here. So how does that room look? You know, how does Kassan Farrar look after having already spent a couple years in that program? Is he somebody who's going to have a real edge early in this process just based on his familiarity and experience? Or is this really Haas Haney's job to lose, which I can't speak for CSU. We'll have to see how it plays out. I'm certainly curious to see what the coaches say on record. But if you put a knife to my back and I had to pick right now as of, you know, March 6th, who the starter is going to be week 1, I would assume that it's going to be Haas Haney. Would imagine that you spent a pretty penny to get him here. And I just think athletically, he's got tools that are very rare. Now, he is undersized. He's not the biggest QB in the world. So he's going to have to be able to use that athleticism at times to extend the play and probably even create, you know, like better passing lanes for him. We'll have to see how all of that plays out. But I'm super curious to see how healthy he looks. How is he moving around, you know, coming off that ankle injury? And what's that arm strength look like in person? It popped, albeit in a really small sample size, you know, with those couple of drives he had for Oklahoma State last year before going down. But I think he is someone who, if all things come together, has an opportunity to be one of the more exciting additions this team has had in a while. And he's definitely going to be someone that I have my eye on quite a bit. Excuse me, as well as the other QBs in the room. You know, you've signed a couple of really exciting young kids out of high school that'll be here this spring as well. You know, how does Emmanuel look? How does Kelly look? I think it'll be really interesting. And frankly, although I don't really expect him to factor too much into the equation when it comes to playing time next fall, you know, I'm still kind of curious to see how this whole situation plays out. You know, with, oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Quarterback that got in trouble for spitting. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Good God, Darius Curry. That was a struggle. That's an old man moment if I've ever had one. Just completely went blank there for a second. But I'm curious to see how he's able to respond. I've talked about it before. It was an unfortunate incident. In some regards, it's indefensible. Being realistic, in the heat of the battle, stuff happens. He's young. And unfortunately for him, it got caught on camera. You know, if one of your most, you know, disappointing or one of the moments you would most want to be able to take back in your life. If it was on camera for everyone to see, you wouldn't love that. And you feel for a kid who's young in that age. Shouldn't have done it. It was a bad look for him. It was a bad look for the team. But we make mistakes when we're 18, 19, 20. I know that I did. So I'm not going to try and act like I'm holier than thou. I'm rooting for him to figure it out. It would be a cool success story if he were to turn things around. You know, maybe he establishes a good rep here as a backup and it ends up transferring out down the line. Maybe he ends up being the starter here at some point. I have no idea how it's all going to play out, but I am curious just to see what that dynamic is like and where he seemingly is in the pecking order, at least going into the summer, because this is gonna matter so much more come August and fall camp than it does when they're in shorts and t-shirts in March and April. But it is definitely going to be interesting to see how that QB room shapes out in the end, how close some of the freshmen are to pushing for playing time versus, you know, how Haas Haney looks like. In an ideal world, you know, one of these guys just takes the reins and is a conference player of the year type, you know, quarterback. Been a while since we've been able to say that. We shall see. We're going to keep this conversation rolling. If you are tuned in live on YouTube and you've got questions, comments, etc., fire them my way in the Toyota chat. Hit a thumbs up if you wouldn't mind. It's great for the algorithm. Please shout out these awesome partners real quick, and then we will keep this party rolling. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota has built durable legends that are destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you're hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. Check out the Land Cruiser. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. Toyota also offers more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. There's 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, so if you want the dependability of that all-wheel drive option, but you're still looking to be a little bit more eco-conscious, that's a great way to do it. They've got the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, which is really what makes them so perfect for Colorado. You can hit the ski slopes, but you can also cruise around I-25 and Cap Hill and Denver without sacrificing that fuel mileage, which is huge. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics. They are the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. I also want to talk to you about Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers. To be quite honest with you, I hope that none of you are ever in a situation where you have to deal with this. But if you are, you want to have the most dependable team around at your side. And that is our friends at Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers. For decades, you've stood by your team through every season, every setback, every comeback, wearing that game-worn jersey, cheering from the same lucky seats. It's not just about the team. It's about the family, the legacy, the love of the game. And at Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers, we get that kind of loyalty because we've been here for more than 30 years, standing with Colorado families, treating more adults with cancer than anyone else in the state. When life gets tough, we never stop showing up. Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers, the official sponsor of Denver sports fans. Head to RockyMountainCancerCenters.com to learn more. Really can't say enough good things about them. They've been responsible for multiple people in my life going into remission and you know, winning their battles. So just big shout out to them. Love that we are partnered with the Rocky Mountain Cancer Center. All right, kind of putting a bow on the spring ball stuff. And again, I want to be clear. I think it's really easy to get carried away in spring. Oh, this guy had 6 catches. He's going to be a star. And you see the tweets and it's all good fun. It's nice for a content. It's nice to have something to talk about going into the summer. You have to take absolutely every observation, every comment, every takeaway with a grain of salt. They're in shorts half the time. You have a lot of the roster here, granted, but you'll have more guys that are going to come into the mix this summer. So, you know, you don't even have your entire team in play as of now. And you've just got to remember that. Like I've seen so many guys who look like the stars of spring, and then when the actual depth chart comes out, you know, 2 weeks before week 1, they're not even on the conversation. They're not in the conversation. They're not on the 2 deep. You get what I'm saying? That That said, I think the thing that's going to be interesting to see with a lot of these guys, just given the uniqueness of the situation, is, what do they look like physically? Haas Haney coming off of that ankle injury. You look in the running back, you got a couple of backs who have potential in a flash, but are coming off of injuries as well. Pierce Sperlin had to medically retire at one point. It's been like a year and a half since he's played football. How is he moving out there? He might be the most interesting player on this whole team. I think we'll know right away what Pierce Sperlin is going to be. Tight end is one of those positions you can just kind of tell physically if somebody's going to be a dude or not. Certainly you can't account for, are they going to have drops when the tension is highest, when the lights are bright? Some guys look great in practice. They don't actually perform when the game comes around. But you look at a guy like Dallin Holker, 2 practices in, I knew that guy was going to be an all-conference tight end. You just saw the way that he moved. It was different. You see the way he comes out of his breaks. You see the way he gets off the line of scrimmage. You see how smooth and silky his hands are. You just knew that was the guy that's going to translate. Sperlin was supposed to be the next big deal after Brock Bowers at tight end for Georgia. The only reason he's not there is because if you medically retire, you can't come back to the same institution that medically retires you, which is kind of a weird quirk in the NCAA, I guess, to potentially eliminate fraud. You could maybe stash. My only thought behind that is like you could, if you were devious enough, like fake a medical retirement and like stash guys for down the line or something like that. But I'm really interested to see, because he had that 4 or 5-star pedigree coming out of high school. Physically, the dude's a tank, but it's been a while. So, how quickly can he hit the ground running? I really feel like the tight ends have an ability to be transformative for this offense this year. And it's been too long since the Rams have had multiple guys who you could really count on. Even in that season with Holker, he was great. Don't get me wrong. Or McBride, like you haven't had that 1-2 punch like you had kind of consistently in the 2000s. You look at like a Crockett, Gilmore, Kevon Cartwright situation. Corey Sperry, I think, overlapped with Kevon a little bit as well. Like it felt like the Rams had more options there in years past. And it's a position where you can create so many mismatches in modern football. It just feels like it's been lacking. And I'm really excited because I think they've got 3 guys that they've brought in that can potentially be first string on most teams in the league. Certainly Sperlin, certainly Vereen, coming over from UConn. I'm really high on those guys. But even Grant Hauser, I think, has great potential. Like I'm just really interested to see what that room looks like. That and the running backs. I think the depth of the room is going to be one of the biggest strengths. Maybe you don't have a Mackey Award winner because the production gets spread out a little bit more. It's a share the love type scenario, and that's probably better for the Rams competitively anyways than being so solely dependent on one individual week to week. But I think the overall impact of those groups is going to be massive. Receiver, we'll see. I don't know if you went out and signed like a true proven number 1 as of yet. I think there's a lot of players that have good potential. Mosley produced well for Mississippi State. I think he'll be a solid receiver for the Rams. Vic is the guy that I kind of feel like, in my mind, I'm most willing to believe, could be a number 1 for you. I just think his ability to make guys miss in the open field is really intriguing. I think he's a sharp route runner as well. I'm surprised he didn't factor more into the mix at Wake Forest. We shall see there. But I think those running backs and tight ends are going to be dynamic. I think it gives you an opportunity to be pretty creative as far as what you're doing with the scheme, especially when you've got a mobile quarterback. I mean, you can get really weird with it if you want to. Multiple backs, multiple tight ends, lined up in the backfield is more of like H-back type stuff. I just think of the rollouts you can do, some of the screen plays you can do with like a tight end coming out of the backfield, catch him off guard. Wheel routes. I mean, there's all kinds of fun stuff that I think you can do if you've got some versatility there. And that's what's going to be fun to see is how does Price Tracy use all of these different gadgets? Maybe you don't have a Trey McBride or a Torrey Horton in terms of this is the clearly established face of the program. This is the guy that's going to have 100 catches. But maybe you have 7 or 8 guys who give you 40 plus, or 30 plus. 40 plus might be a little bit rich unless you go on an extended run in the postseason. But I really hope that when we look up at the end of the year, a lot like what you could say with CSU and Ali Farokhmanesh this year, is just that they had an eye for talent and they were able to hit. Now, not all of them have to turn into all conference players, but it just gives you so much reassurance that they have an idea of not only the talent that's going to translate, but like the right type of guys that are going to come into your program and succeed. It's not just a talent question. And I think Lewis Brown is a great example of that. Someone who is frankly a headache the entire time he was at CSU, gets a big head, goes to the portal thinking he's going to end up at a P4, ends up at San Diego State instead, basically puts up equivalent numbers to what he had at CSU, comes back kind of with his tail between his legs, gets kicked off the team for shoplifting. Really unfortunate, but it's just an example of Lewis Brown as NFL talent in terms of his athleticism and his receiving abilities, but he was a headache. And those type of guys can be so much more detrimental to your team than a guy who just didn't hit physically is, but he does all the right things in practice and is, a good culture glue type guy. You need a lot of culture players in a football locker room because a lot of people are depth pieces, just being real about the situation. And that's where it's a really tough balance to strike, especially when the turnover is as significant year to year as it is for these programs. It's hard to build that continuity, that camaraderie when you've got guys here basically as 6-month rentals. I do think having the one portal period will help that to an extent, just guaranteeing guys are in the program for more like 9 to 10 months instead. It was just silly what college football had become these last couple of years with the cycle. It was just so detrimental to success for the vast majority of these schools. But we'll see, how quickly can these guys hit the ground running. As far as trench play goes, that's something I think you get a better idea of in the scrimmages. So like early on in the process, we're not going to know a ton. They're not going to be going full contact. They're not even going to be in full pads. But how do they move? You brought some really big players in. So on paper, you feel good about the size, but how do they carry that weight? How are they in terms of agility? How do they move laterally? That's something I'll have my eye on. Defensively, do you have enough speed in the secondary? I really think some of the guys they kept defensively will be big. Kenyon Aggers, I think keeping him was huge. CJ Blocker, I know he didn't have a great moment in that Air Force game with the missed tackle, but he runs really well and is someone who I think could make a leap here in his second season in the program. Keeping those guys, that's big. You get Diamande, who is one of the key pieces on that UConn defense. Just athletically, how do they look? Because I think on paper, this might be the most excited or most intrigued I've been by a CSU defensive group in a while. Just think athletically, this team is at another level on that side of the ball compared to what it's been at in years past. Can they tackle? Can they, can they make the right reads and all that? TBD. But just in terms of the size, the way these guys run, I think the Rams should be pretty athletic on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm interested to see in was traditionally a pretty aggressive approach under Tyson Summers, how that kind of comes to fruition last year. You never really got an opportunity to see the vision come through because of the injury situation. It was just so chaotic in terms of who was in the lineup week to week. Never really seen a situation quite like that. But those are kind of the things I'll have my eye on. How does Haas Haney look like he's moving around? What is Pierce Sperlin like in the early stages? I'm excited about that whole tight end room, but him specifically just coming off of the medical retirement. How's the new kicker look? I mean, he didn't end up working out the way that I thought he would, but you knew that you had to go get a kicker in the portal after last spring. How does the kid that came over from the North Texas, how is he able to kind of operate in those clutch situations? Hey, you got to make this field goal or we're going to run. Does he make it? Last year, the kid missed every time. What's the vibe like? How's the dynamics within the practice, the culture, all of that kind of stuff, all the buzzwords you would love to throw out there. It'll be interesting. I will be there Sunday morning. We'll have some written content that comes out, and then we'll have quite a bit of football focus, especially after the Mountain West tournament. I'll miss a practice or two out in Vegas covering hoops. But football is here. Spring is in the air, and football is too. All right, we got to move on. We got to talk hoops. I have been yapping away today. I didn't think I would spend almost 20 minutes talking on Roddy. That's on me. He just should have known better. Love him. Guy I've been rooting for, since the first day he got to campus. I'm excited to see him get that opportunity. But I'm really excited to talk about this win over New Mexico because I think going into the pit, winning wire to wire, 82-74 against New Mexico team who was playing for their at-large viability, who was playing for a share of the conference title, to go into that setting in front of more than 14,000 people and to win wire to wire the way that CSU did, that speaks volumes to the state of this program right now. And that's really validating. We've tried to be realistic and fair with the commentary in recent weeks. The Rams have most certainly been hot. You've won 8 straight games. That's a Mountain West era record for CSU. 8 straight regular season conference wins. They technically won 10 straight going into the NCAA tournament last year, but 3 of those came in the Mountain West tournament. So if we're just looking at the regular season, this is the most consecutive conference wins that CSU has had in the 27 seasons they played in the Mountain West. That says something. It's really hard to go on a run like that in this league because there's so many tough, true road environments, and there always have been. Used to be places like Utah and BYU. You lost them. You've added some great venues in terms of, Utah State and Boise historically is a tough place to play, less so because of the environment, more so because it's just been a good team. But it's tough to go places like Utah State, CSU. It's tough to come here. And New Mexico, San Diego State, those places have always been hard to win. The Rams just 3-12 over the last 15 in the pit. They had lost 5 straight overall to New Mexico since CSU had gone down there and beat them in February of 22, I believe it was, with Roddy. That was a really huge win as well. Rams won that game by 15. Historically, when CSU has been able to win in places like the Pit or Viejas, those teams tend to go on runs in the postseason. They make the NCAA tournament. They make the championship game out in Vegas. And this was just such an encouraging step in what's been a really fun run for this team. I just cannot credit the guys enough for sticking with it, because starting 3-8 really felt like this team was dead in the water. Now, playing devil's advocate, in hindsight, it sucks that you blew those games against Fresno and Wyoming. That Utah State loss, those kill you. Could have had a slim chance to play for a conference title if you just won a couple of those games that you should have. Certainly the DU game hurts from a resume perspective and just what it did to the metrics. But this is one of the best teams in the Mountain West right now, and we'll give a power ranking before we go. But this is a team that can hang with anybody in the league, and this is a team that nobody's going to want to deal with in Vegas. It's been so impressive to see how many of these individuals have been able to rise to the occasion. I think that's what's been fun about this team night to night, is you see so many different key guys deliver in their moment. Jace Butler's been so clutch in some of those late game free throw situations. He's shot the ball well. Jevin Mooney's has been such a tremendous facilitator. This game was largely about the bigs being able to drill some of those pick and pop threes and the way that it opened up the spacing. I mean, getting 10 of 16 from 3-point out of Jorgensen, Bemba, Augie, and Booth, that's the difference in the game. That and the fact that you played phenomenal and intelligent defense for 40 minutes. This felt like a March game from the get-go. The intensity was there. You could tell New Mexico had a lot to play for. CSU feels like they have a lot to play for. And the defense was solid right out of the gate. Both teams turned the ball over on their first possession. I think there were a combined 12 turnovers over the first 9 minutes of play, but only 1 foul called in that stretch. So not only is the intensity ramped up, guys are playing defense, they're causing havoc, they're doing it without fouling, and both teams deserve a lot of credit for that. I think these are 2 really good basketball teams. I think as of right now, on March 6th, these are 2 of the 3 best teams in the Mountain West. And they delivered in a huge game. It was really fun. But you've got to credit the Rams for showing toughness in the setting the way that they did, to knock down those shots and take the crowd out of it, but also take advantage of New Mexico giving you all that space. If they're going to dare somebody like Kyle Jorgensen, who at his best is close to a 40% three-point shooter, that's a good look for him at the top of the key. That's a good look for him. If you're going to give him that, he's got to be able to make you pay. the huge factor was Bemba also drilling him. He had 2 made threes coming in, ends up hitting 3 in this game. Now all of a sudden New Mexico has to switch everything, and it creates more opportunities for you to get to the rim. It creates more space under the hoop. I felt like we saw CSU take advantage of that in the second half, get to the free throw line with more consistency. The flow kind of went out in that second half, got a little ticky-tacky with the refs. I felt like it's tough, though, because it was such a physical game. You're just trying to keep things in check. But I felt like there were a couple of really key instances in this game where every time it felt like the tide might be turning a little bit or New Mexico might be poised to go on a run, the Rams would come back with a counter of their own. They might get 4 or 5 points. They might make a couple of hoops, but they never gave up that 10-0 run, that 15-3 run that allows you to blow the lead. And you've got to just credit how steady and how smooth CSU was in this setting against a really athletic team who played good defense. I mean, they were in the Rams' grill, and I just thought it was huge. It wasn't a game where you got a ton of production out of your guards. Rec hit that 3 early, tried to force a couple of them at various points in the game, but it wasn't his night shooting the ball. They were keyed in on him and Jace and Jevin along the perimeter. They were more willing. New Mexico, was more willing to live with those bigs shooting the ball. And to the credit of the bigs, they burned UNM. They got the matchups they wanted. They had the game plan that they wanted, and it backfired. And that's in large part to the really impressive shot making of all those guys. I mean, the volume of the production came out of Jorgensen and Bemba from deep, but Booth, he hit a big 3 in the second half in addition to a couple of really big, like 90-second swings with him. He had one in the first half where it was a tie game, gets a dunk, then comes back down the other way, hits a mid-range shot, comes down again, gets fouled. Actually had a basket that got overturned because he had to travel as well. So, I mean, I just liked that he was confident in this game and really tried to establish his presence. He had another stretch when New Mexico did kind of have like a 6-0 run in that second half where he gets a dunk, then he has a block on the other end, attacks in transition, gets to the line. Like, he's showing so much more assertiveness. And there are still moments like the travel where he shows his inexperience, where he shows how green he still is. But he shakes those moments off better now. He doesn't get in his head about them. He just moves on and continues to flash that explosiveness more and more. And against a team like New Mexico who wants to bring the pressure, having a guy that's that athletic and is fearless and is willing to attack the hoop, that's tone setting. And I felt like Kerry Booth's confidence was tone setting in this game. I felt like he had some stretches that really gave the Rams a lot of life, in addition to Jorgensen hitting those open threes. And he's been really open about that, how this is a CSU team that they get confidence when those threes start to fall. It just gives them a swagger. It brings the demon out of them. And we saw that in a setting where it's about tougher to steal a win on the road than anybody in America. I mean, the pit's awesome. It's just one of the iconic venues. It kills me that this is the last guaranteed game down there. I still think CSU and UNM will play in the future. I think it makes too much sense not to, but it's one of those places you just can't discount how impressive it is to go in there and win. And you got to tip the cap to Ali Faroukmanesh. I mean, yes, there are some games you'd like to have back, but 20 wins already in year one. Got home wins over Wyoming and CU now, in addition to San Diego State and New Mexico. Those are pretty impressive scalps in your first year as a coach, especially when you factor in how much production and how little continuity, or how much production was lost and how little continuity you had coming into this year. It's been huge. It's been huge, as has been the evolution of Kerry Booth and all these guys we've been really waxing poetically about now over the last month. It's just been fun to see how big of a leap that he has been able to make. I got asked on Twitter today, has this been the most impressive in-season leap we've seen with one player, in reference to Kerry Booth? I thought it was a great question. It's tough to compare because I think what Neek did in year one was really impressive and shouldn't be understated. I also think he came in a little bit more refined than Booth. But Booth was somebody who, despite the athleticism, a lot of the national guys were DMing me before the season of like, we'll see, I guess. And, you've heard Brad Underwood, go on the record and kind of bash him, which I thought was super lame. For the record, maybe they need better coaching because look at what he's doing under Ali. I just think it's been fun to see these guys not only find their footing, but just see their confidence rise as the year has gone on. And I think that Jace Butler, Kerry Booth, even Rex Steiner with the way he's playing right now, it's night and day from the mindset and just kind of where these guys were at when they came into the program. They were looking for a home. They were looking for an opportunity to prove themselves, and they've gotten that chance. They've been given an opportunity to not only play, but to fail, which is so key in true development and evolution as a player. You have to be given an opportunity to learn from your mistakes. If the first thing that happens every time you turn the ball over is you get sent to the bench, what do you think that does to your psyche? What do you think that does to you the next time you have an opportunity to make a play and you have that lingering in the back of your head? I just love the patience that they showed with these guys. And yes, there are frustrating losses. Yes, they struggled more in the early stages of the league slate than I would have anticipated. They're also, as of right now, playing at a higher rate than I would have thought was possible, especially in like November, December. And that's a credit to the coaching. That's a credit to the guys in the locker room for staying locked in. And that's a credit to the fight that they're bringing night to night. I loved the emphasis to cut in this game. I know CSU turned the ball over 20 times. I bet with 6 or 7 of those, it was the exact right idea, right read, right movement. Pass was just a little bit off, or the catch wasn't quite there. I thought the mindset was really sharp offensively, and despite the turnovers, and it was too many, don't get me wrong, 20 turnovers, you gave them 26 points off of it. You cut that in half, it's a blowout, being real. But I felt like the mindset was right, and you saw that with the efficiency. When CSU didn't turn the ball over, it was basically a guaranteed bucket. They went 13 of 16 on 2-point. They shot lights out from 3-point. They were good, not great at the line. They missed 8 free throws in that second half, which is too many for my taste. But they also didn't have those long stretches of like 2-3 guys in a row going 0 for 2. That's when you really give a team life, when it was 15 and now it's 12. Now it's 8-7. You're missing free throws. Oh, no, now it's a 2-possession game. Like, that's how you leave that door open. And to Jace Butler's credit, went 5 of 6 at the line over the final 10 minutes. I thought he was so huge. Jev, a couple other guys hit free throws as well. The biggest might have actually been that 3-point sequence where Brandon Rechsteiner got fouled late in the shot clock. I don't remember exactly. I think that was about 10 minutes in. New Mexico was kind of trying to fight back in at that point, and it just ended up being such a massive sequence because the Rams were up 9, kind of a disjointed possession. It's late in the clock. Great footwork on his part. He gets his defender in the air, draws contact, gets 3 free throws, makes all 3. So now, instead of potentially turning the ball over there and having your 9-point lead go to 7 or even 6, it ends up being a 6-point swing. You force a turnover the ensuing sequence, and that ends up being a transition 3 for Jorgensen the other way. To me, like, that was such a perfect example of the resilience and the headiness of CSU and just staying cool and calm in the moment. You're going to take some punches, just punch back. And the Rams had a counter every single time. I liked the pacing. I liked the emphasis to cut going up against a defense like New Mexico, who's going to be in your face. They're going to pressure your ball handlers. While CSU is comfortable being patient in the half court, you don't want to give them an opportunity to get in your grill and put you in a position where you're now reacting to their defensive pressure rather than the defense having to react to what you are doing offensively. And I felt like CSU did a good job of not being too stagnant, keeping the ball moving, keeping the defense working, playing inside out. And then again, the cutting was just really great, especially as you hit some of those threes early on. Now New Mexico has to switch everything 1 through 5, and that's going to give you advantageous cuts to the lane, and the Rams took advantage of that as well. I feel like for me, this was the type of game that starts to give you all kinds of crazy thoughts, right? Like, even as fun as it was over those first 7, you're telling yourself, like, yeah, San Diego State, that's a nice win. UNLV's great, but you should beat Wyoming. You should beat San Jose State twice. You should beat Air Force. You should beat those types of teams. You got to be a good team to go into the pit and beat the Lobos. Why not CSU? Why couldn't they make a little bit of magic here? if they're going to defend the way that they have been of late, felt like they did a great job of taking Bouillon and Hall, UNM star freshman, out of the equation in this one. You're going to be clutch the way CSU has down the stretch in some of these tight games. Why not? Winning 4-4 is going to be crazy tough, but I'm having so much fun right now. I just don't want to see the Magic end, regardless of whether the Rams make the tournament or not. It's still a long shot, very much a long shot. Should not be expected as of now. But what happens if you beat Boise and then you win a couple of games in Vegas? How does that conversation change? We'll see. I'll give just a couple of thoughts here before we get out. We are headed to overtime, though, so the conversation continues at thednvr.com. This was so encouraging on so many levels just to win in this setting. But I just think it's been fun to see the way that everybody is chipping in right now. It's your third straight game with 5 different guys finishing with 10 or more points, and it ends up being close to 6 or 7 because in all those games you've also had somebody finish with like 9, like Bemba did in this one. But you get 13 out of Booth, 13 out of Reck, 11 out of Butler, 19 out of Jorgensen, 11 out of Augie. Augie had a great game. I've been really critical of him, and he still doesn't always translate super well athletically, but he is very skilled and he's tough in the paint. And when he is able to get some space, I mean, he's got a nice touch off the glass. That 3-pointer that he hit late in the second was a dagger. It's huge to be able to go to the bench and get that type of production out of him and Bemba in this type of setting. I think if I had to go with the Xfinity X Factor, it was Jorgensen in this game. This is the Xfinity X Factor presented by Xfinity. Imagine that. When you have a big shoot as lights out as he did, it's just going to completely change the equation defensively for the opponent. Opened up everything. It's a big part of what allowed not just him to have success, but really the entire offense. Also, third straight game where you have an individual hit 5 or more threes. They've had somebody hit 3 or more threes in 6 or of 7 of the 8 wins in this streak, which is really impressive. But Kyle Jorgensen, the Xfinity X Factor, that was the Xfinity X Factor presented by Xfinity. Imagine that. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a wood could chuck wood? Just some final key stats. 59% from the floor. Awesome. 44% from 3-point. 13 of 16 on 2-point attempts. As I said, really efficient when they weren't turning the ball over. And to CSU's credit, the Rams had 16 points off of turnovers themselves, forced 12. A few too many in this one on the offensive end for my liking. But the defensive mentality was there from the beginning. As far as what to look for this weekend goes, wildly enough, CSU could still technically finish 4th through 8th. 4th is very much a long shot. You would need both Grand Canyon to lose to Fresno and Nevada to lose to Air Force. Neither of those is likely, but the odds of both happening is slim. On top of CSU also needing to beat Boise State. But it's not impossible. It is still technically possible. It feels like 6th or 7th is most likely just based on how those tiebreakers are going to play out. The Rams own head-to-head over GCU and UNLV, which is huge. They lose the tiebreaker, obviously, to Nevada. I think if you put me on the stand and I had to swear under oath, who do I feel like the most dangerous teams in the league are right now? I think CSU's in that top 3. I know their resume in totality is not that of a top 3 team in the league. But if the question is who is the most dangerous team right now, the Rams are in that conversation. So before we get out of here, I've got Air Force and San Jose State 12-11. No movement there, not shocking. Fresno State at 10, Wyoming at 9. Both those teams frisky, though. You don't want to overlook them. Nevada at 8 after dropping 2 straight. They pulled out a couple of big wins. Seemed to validate some of the earlier praise I had for them. Now they've fallen off a cliff again. Alfred coach teams are always weird. Kind of feels like he's past his prime to me. GCU at 7. I'm not as high on them as some others seem to be. I know the analytics really favor them. I got San Diego State all the way down at 6 right now, and that just is due to the inconsistency. They're like 1-3 over their last 4 games over the top teams in the league, and they just don't have that same toughness night to night. Boise, winners of 4 straight. I've got them at 5, including a convincing win over San Diego State the other night. I've got UNLV at 4. I don't know if I've had them in the top 4 in years. I just think they're really dangerous with what Dre Gibbs Lawhorn is doing. They get to play on their home floor. Obviously, that's a big advantage in the conference tournament. I've got CSU at 3. 8 straight wins, winning in the pit, beating San Diego State, beating a red-hot UNLV team on their floor. If that's not worthy of a top 3 power ranking, I don't know what is. If you want a representation of the entire season, go look at the standings. We don't need that. That's not the question. The question is, who are the most dangerous teams right now? That's how the power ranking works. I've got them at 3. New Mexico 2, Utah State 1, but that's kind of a coin flip. Whoever wins that game on Saturday sorts that out going into the tournament. Again, I'll be going live on Monday and Tuesday ahead of the Mountain West tourney. We got a question here from Jay Black. Sorry if you mentioned this as I joined late, but do you see the only path to the tournament is winning the Mountain West tourney? Likely, at least as of now. I will say, you win this game against Boise. If you can get to at least the title game, that would be 3 more wins, 2 of which would presumably be at least Q2 wins. There's potentially a small possibility at that point, but unlikely, because I just think that the committee factors the regular season far more than hot runs in the tournament, which is ironic because the tournament winners are who get in, but it's just one of those where it doesn't seem like the conference tournaments outside of teams going on a crazy run like UNM 2 years ago, going 4 in 4 days and winning. I don't know if teams get the credit they necessarily should for winning in those settings, especially when you factor in how hard it is. I mean, those games start stacking up day after day. That's really, really tough. Dustin says, would it be modern CSU basketball if there wasn't a slight collapse mid-season and then got hot right before the tourney? Has seemed to be their vibe of late. You are right, my man. That's all I've got for you. Thank you for tuning in. Again, we'll be live Monday and Tuesday ahead of the Mountain West tournament. I'll be live tonight on the DNVR Avalanche pre- and post-game shows if you're a hockey fan. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. We are always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.